One is a classic comedy staple, the other its gender-bent modernization. Ghostbusters. They remade it. Hi, I'm your host, Jacob.
And I'm your host, Stuart.
And this is episode 3 of They Remade It.
Episode 3, we're just chugging along now.
Yeah, starring the Ghostbusters themselves.
Hooray! Real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, not the cartoon.
No, not us. We're
not
the
the
real
cartoon
Ghostbusters.
show from 1986.
It is kind of weird to think we are in a way Ghostbusters with how many old movies we're having to go back over.
Whoa.
Or the Ghostbusters of film.
No one remembers the Ghostbusters.
No, we're the...
Resurrect them. Tracy the Gorilla, everyone forgot about him.
I definitely don't know who that is.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
This isn't an animation historian podcast.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that might come about someday. But I don't know enough about it, so you'll have to find someone else.
So what have you been watching these past weeks?
I actually have watched a couple more things.
Really?
I watched Quiet Place, John Krasinski's movie.
Yeah.
Really good.
I have heard.
It's like I keep thinking back over it. It's like it's really good, but God, there's a lot of plot holes in it.
Yeah.
Without wishing to spoil a lot. The whole point of it is that there are these alien monsters. They hunt down people who make any noise. But there's so many moments in the film where characters have to get away and try to lure them away, but they never once throw a noisemaker of any kind. Like, these characters have been around for over a year dealing with this tragedy, and they don't have any kind of throwable thing to get the creatures away from them. Like, they don't at one point there is an egg timer that they use to lure one away, but they only ever use that once.
I'm wondering if that's more a plot hole or more oversight.
I guess oversight would probably be it, but it's so omnipresent throughout it. Like, there's all this whole thing where they're like, oh, we have to soundproof this room, or we have to go be near this waterfall that kind of drowns out our voices. Which, another thing, why don't they just live near a waterfall? They live out on this big open field farm where any noise is going to attract anything but for miles around. And so it's that's not to say this is in any way a bad movie. This is an incredibly good movie, and it's really freaky and really it very much takes advantage of the whole jump scaring with sudden noises thing, which obviously it's gonna with its plot and everything. But I think it's a great movie. Go see it. John Krasinski, I didn't really expect him to make something like that, but then again, I've been surprised, with Get Out.
Yeah, still gotta go.
That's the newest one I've watched. I also rewatched Baby Driver because I love that movie. That's probably my favorite movie the last 5 years or longer. It's just so well made. But yeah.
Nice. Anything
Anything for you? Any new series? Any new any rewatching of old things?
Actually, yeah, not really rewatching, but I recently went through a phase. I was not rewatching. I was catching up on a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff that I had not seen. Yeah. I would say I'd seen about half of the library and still had half of it to go through, and so I did that. Movies like Castle in the Sky from Up on Poppy Hill, Porco Rosso, that I hadn't seen and I was putting off watching. I actually went through. Yeah.
I've really been wanting to do that because I'm realizing more and more I've barely seen any of them. I haven't even seen Princess Mononoke.
That's contested as the best one.
Exactly. My personal favorite's Howl's Moving Castle, but again, I haven't seen the other one, so I can't really make a great comparison.
Howl's Moving Castle is a flip-flop for a lot of Studio Ghibli fans. You either love it or you hate it. The big two are Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. Yeah. You like one over the other, but they're both fantastic.
Oh yeah, I love... I definitely still love Spirited Away. And then, but yeah, I've really been meaning to see that. Was it
Porco Rosso?
Porco Rosso, that was it.
The pig pilot.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly because I've always wanted to see it because I just know the line, I'd rather be a pig than a fascist. And I just love that line.
It's a great line.
Yeah, it's that and is Grave of the Fireflies, that's one?
Yes, it is.
I still need to see so many of those films. And I've just always for a long time, it's like, yeah, I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan. Meanwhile, I've seen maybe 4.
They're not that hard to to find. Yeah,
no, I mean, I'm sure there's huge collections.
Just gotta watch them. And as with me, I watch them dubbed. I don't do the original because I like watching movies and TV shows, but I have a lot of other stuff I usually do too.
Yeah.
So I don't really have time to read subtitles, and that may sound like a cop out, and it does to some people, but
I mean, not really.
I am a dub fan. I don't find it disrespectful in any way. There's plenty of movies that get dubbed over, movies and TV shows that get dubbed overseas just to make it easier watching.
Plus, there is just such a there's a weird charm to Studio Ghibli movies being dubbed. Like, it has this kind of, all their movies, even the violent ones, seem to have this kind of childlike glee to them. Like, even with the dubbed over ones, it kind of seems like almost a child's production of it, where it's just like, okay, it's a little stilted, but it feels fun.
Right.
Like, and I say that before I've seen Princess Mononoke, where I know for a fact it is violent as fuck.
That's actually one of my favorite parts because I like knowing voice actors and going through them. So I'll watch one I haven't seen or heard or I've heard about it, but I haven't like read about it. Like Palm Poco, which is the one with the Tanukis. Yeah. And it starts up and the narrator is Maurice LaMarche. I'm immediately like, that's Maurice LaMarche. He's the narrator. And it's just great.
Yeah, and then fucking Christian Bale and Howl's Moving Castle with the first case of the Batman voice. Yeah. Like, when he's just as the, like, Howl's as the monster, and all of a sudden I heard that, it's like, oh shit, that's where that came from.
Besides those, I also, I finally got around to watching Gilbert, the Gilbert Gottfried documentary. Which was very nice, very touching. Mm-hmm.
I mean, of all people, I would assume you'd love that the most.
Mm-hmm. I really did. It was really touching to see this life and to see the history and see his sisters and all that. It didn't take me by surprise at any real point. I knew a lot about this just from listening to his podcast and stuff. Just because various people mention it or talk about it, but it's still it's a really great film. People should go out and watch that.
Nice. I'll probably go see it. I've never really known much about the guy, so I should go do that.
All right. With that out of the way,
with our personal lives out of the way as usual,
it's time to delve into the matter at hand.
Good old Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters comedy.
Yay!
Comedy movies.
Our first comedy. Thank God.
So you want me to just sort of go through the motions with them real quick?
Yeah, go into basic plot, I guess.
Right.
Because it's not as heavy and everything as Scarface and Blade Runner. So it's a pretty general plot synopsis for both.
Yeah. We'll just sort of go into it.
Yeah.
So for Ghostbusters 1984, basically Bill Murray's character, Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd, Raymond Stantz, and Harold Ramis's character, Egon Spengler, they're all scientists to varying degrees within the university. And
an unspecified university, by the way.
Unspecified, yes.
It's actually Columbia University, which they actually kind of reference in the newer one. But that's for later.
That's where it was filmed.
Yeah, exactly. They got all the support to do that, but they couldn't say the name.
Right.
Because they're like, we don't need this association.
But after a spectral event that occurs at the library downtown, Dan Aykroyd pulls Bill Murray. Sorry, I refer to them by actor names a lot.
I think everyone's going to refer to them by their actor names, with the exception of maybe Egon. I think I've consistently seen...
He's more of a producer/director than an actor. But,
exactly.
But he still appears in stuff, so...
Exactly, so it's like...
Anyway.
But Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. It's like, come on, that's easy.
Anyway, so he pulls him into this investigation where they're going down to the library to study spectral events. They... encounter a ghost and flee the scene.
As one does, completely unprepared. They're just like, "Hey, there's a ghost. Let's touch it.
What do we do? Go talk to it." What? So,
stop that.
so that basically takes place, and afterwards they are kicked out of the university. They are
for because why the fuck not?
Right, they are kicked out of the university. No one really... Well, the students do, according to Bill Murray, but no one really cares for them being there, so they're thrown out. And they have to find their own facility to undergo operations, and especially now that they've seen this ghost. Yep. They've got the Jones for ghosting, whatever that entails. Even the characters know yet.
Jonesing for a ghosting.
Yeah. So they because Dan Aykroyd freaks out about it, they end up purchasing an abandoned firehouse to use as their base of operations.
Which kind of becomes the iconic image of the entire movie, just with the big Ghostbusters logo outside of it, them barreling out in the car.
Though I like that first logo. I don't remember that. I've seen this movie countless times, but I didn't remember, like, oh, that's really underwhelming sign, guy. Because they're just putting up the plain text Ghostbusters on there before the sign gets installed.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw that. I was forgot about that.
It's kind of cool.
But yeah, so meanwhile, Sigourney Weaver playing Dana Barrett and Rick Moranis playing Louis Tully are at an apartment complex downtown. Sigourney Weaver's in her apartment. She sees this commercial for the Ghostbusters and flicks it off. That's sort of a nice world-building aspect.
Yeah.
You can see different things parallel to one another. But eggs start cooking themselves on her counter, and there's a dog in her fridge.
Yeah.
So there's an entire new dimension in her fridge with the dog there.
It's going all zool.
Zool. So yeah, voiced by Ivan Reitman, director.
Oh.
That's his voice.
Oh, didn't know that.
So, so she freaks out and decides to seek help from the ghost men.
Them ghost busting people.
Yes. So she goes downtown, and Bill Murray is the one that greets her. Well, Janine Melnitz, their secretary, played by Annie Potts, is there,
Yes,
but
Annie Potts is a gem.
She gets overridden by Bill Murray that decides to find out. They find out more about this case because he is a womanizer.
Yeah.
So they
it's a Bill Murray character. Just kind of imagine it like that, and you'll get the gist.
Right.
If you've ever seen a Bill Murray character, then that's it. If you haven't seen a Bill Murray character, see this movie. You'll know what a Bill Murray character is.
See any movie with Bill Murray in it.
Yeah. This one seems like he is very much at his Murrayest.
Yeah. This is just a Bill Murray movie.
This is a Bill Murray movie.
With other people in the background.
It's Bill Murray, the Ghostbuster.
So they interview her, and after the other two, Ramis and Aykroyd, split off to do research, Bill Murray accompanies her to her apartment to do some investigating.
Yep.
Though he's really just half-assing it around, playing around as he does.
Just kind of trying to seem impressive.
Right. He doesn't see anything there.
Yeah. And then just kind of, basically just kind of, he doesn't really bail. He kind of gets kicked out, but at the same time,
he tries to goad her into a date. Like, you'll be thinking about me once I'm gone.
He flirts his way out the door.
Yeah. So now he's out there.
Yeah. So we've at least established, the situation of, oh, there's a ghost, now there's not a ghost, whatever.
Right. Shortly after, their careers actually take off.
Yes.
Because of the infamous hotel.
Yep. With the introduction of good old Slimer.
Good old Slimer.
Who's never actually referred to as Slimer until the real Ghostbusters show, is that right?
The cartoon, yes.
And he's also called Slimer. He's also credited in Ghostbusters 2 in the credits. In the credits, yes. That's kind of besides the point.
That's a case of which came first. But
exactly. So
real Ghostbusters came first.
Yeah.
Anyways, they're in the hotel deciding to try out their packs. Because there's this ghost flying around on the 12th floor. It is Slimer. They chase him around. They end up locking themselves in the ballroom to take quick work of him, and they eventually catch him, and that launches the media into a frenzy.
And this is I guess I should say, this is the first introduction of, like, the whole proton pack thing, where they're using using lasers to catch ghosts, basically.
Forget that. They actually have the nuclear accelerators on their backs now. Yep. They have a way to contain these ghosts.
Yeah, they actually, like, put them in these little, like, mouse traps and shit. Well, okay, they're not mouse trap, but whatever. I've always called it a mouse trap because it's like one.
It's like a vacuum tube.
Yeah. So, media goes crazy.
Introduction of Larry King, Casey Kasem on the radio, a bunch of media personalities and cameos.
It's just cameo after cameo. This is very much, it's a very SNL movie and a very big comedy like that. It's going to have so many references and cameos like that.
Though, on the part of Larry King and Casey Kasem, they're not SNL guys.
Well, no, but they're still they're big name people.
I guess they're able to pull it possibly because it is a big comedy with a bunch of big name stars in it. So that's probably where that comes from.
Yeah.
So
good old montage time after that with them.
Montage, which I love. I'll talk about it later. This is not the time for that. This is
synopsis
time.
It's not quite push it to the limit level, but it's pretty good.
Right. But anyways, this is synopsis time. I'm not going to talk about that yet.
Yeah.
So, they go through the montage, and immediately afterwards, Ernie Hudson shows up, playing Winston Zedmore, to apply for a job at the facility. And after a quick interview with Janine, he's instantly hired by Ray.
Yeah, because they're basically understaffed with all this other crap where they're storing ghosts up, and they're like, yeah, we
Right.
need help, thank you.
He's instantly taken in and shown around.
Yep.
So, a little while after...
Just as this happens.
Right. There is a setup with... what occurs first? Is it Peter meeting Dana again outside the orchestra hall, or is this Walter Peck? Which comes first?
I
don't
think
remember.
Walter Peck, I think, shows up first.
You think he shows up first?
I think. Don't quote me on that though. But
Actually, I think Bill meets Dana.
Yeah, these scenes are kind of interchangeable. It's mostly just kind of more fleshing out characters or the introduction of Walter Peck with the EPA.
Well, Peter meets Dana and goads her into going out on a date, especially now that he's this big media personality. That also they play around with that a lot. So he now has a date set up.
Yeah.
Afterwards, Walter Peck, played by William Atherton of the EPA, shows up, the Environmental Protection Agency.
You never expect that to be the bad guy, but this is the 80s, anything goes.
Right. And he tries to get them to show him around, but with no legal ability to do so, they force him out. Well, Peter forces him out.
Pretty much. Right. Just after kind of like making fun of him a bit, and as he's wont to do. Mm-hmm. And then he goes off on his way.
Right. So, cut to the party.
Yes, the party.
Well, the party that Sigourney Weaver, Dana is not... I'm trying to get better. That Dana is not at. She goes to her apartment and...
Rick Moranis.
Lewis is out in the hall. He's like, oh, come in. Well, I have a date tonight. Oh, you can bring him. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So she goes...
established. Cock block notice.
So
Anyway.
she goes into her apartment waiting around for Peter to show up.
Yep.
And is grabbed by what I believe I couldn't find reference to it because I don't think I looked very hard. I just assumed it was Frank Oz puppetry because most everything is Frank Oz puppetry.
Yeah, but like it's
These
very
arms.
She sits down in this armchair and then all of a sudden a bunch of arms pop out and just start groping her up.
Arms
like
from
there is
the
a couple.
armchair.
There is like one like hand in particular. It is straight up cop on a feel. It's like
up
okay,
there and then one over her arm,
and then it shoots her forward into the refrigerator, which now has the other dimension open again.
Right.
And
was it the refrigerator? I thought it was just another room this time.
I think I think it's shot into the kitchen. I think the door of the kitchen closed after she went in, but the refrigerator was definitely open.
But it's there.
Yeah. So that's what happens.
So she's absorbed by Zool.
Yes, by Zool, the dog in there.
And at the same time,
another one gets out.
At Lewis's party, I love Lewis.
Yeah.
God damn.
He's such a gem.
I just love Rick Moranis, man.
Yeah.
But he's going around introducing everyone to one another and having a ball at the party. Meanwhile, the other dog, Vince Glortho,
like,
something like that.
Miscellaneous.
I don't remember his name.
Miscellaneous
dog.
He never actually says his name quite as dramatically as Zool.
Zool. Yeah. He says it in casual conversation.
Yeah.
They're two very different dogs. Anyways, he gets chased out of the apartment complex and downtown to like a gazebo.
There's like a gazebo in Central Park or something.
Yeah, and like absorbs him there and takes over his mind.
Yeah. And I guess I should say these dogs both are first seen like on the top of the apartment building where Lewis and Anne, what was her name again?
Dana.
Why did I think
Dana?
Anne?
Annie Potts, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, on top of there's like this whole like what looks to be these statues of dogs and these kind of like, sort of Art Deco looking crap, but it turns out, there's actually real life dogs in there and they pop out. That's where they come from, we should say. They weren't just like deciding, hey, let's fuck with these people.
Right. So, simultaneously happening, Peter shows up at Dana's apartment and she is possessed looking for the keymaster because she is the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And he goes in there attempting to calm her down, find out what's going on. He notices the slime on the doors and the walls.
Yep, and he's all casual about like,
Trying to get Dana to come out, she starts levitating and throwing a fit.
Yep.
Meanwhile, at the Ghostbusters headquarters, Lewis has been arrested after a spree on the town being possessed by this dog.
Yeah.
So the police bring him to Ghostbusters headquarters and they start analyzing his mind to figure out what's going on. After a brief conversation, they find out that these two characters are doing this, being possessed, and there's an oncoming of Gozer,
This some like Sumerian god or something.
Yes, Sumerian.
Yeah, this goes
not Babylonian, Sumerian.
Specifically Sumerian.
So they start going. They find out about that, and they're going to do more research on it when the EPA actually does show up.
Yep, and they come out. They go in and they're like, "Oh, these guys are releasing toxic gas," and so people are thinking they see ghosts, but it's like, no, there's no.
Yeah, and they actually have a warrant for entry this time, so they're able to go in there. They order the forceful shutdown of the facility,
which has the storage unit of all the ghosts.
Right,
and then all of a sudden,
boom! Everything explodes, which is the worst possible thing to unleash, especially when this massive Twinkie-sized ghost phenomena is about to occur.
Yeah, this like 300-pound Twinkie situation.
Right. So,
and then all of a sudden, like just all this build up and just ghosts just are let loose on the city and pandemonium ensues. You know?
Right. Well, we should mention that before the big name pandemonium starts.
Yeah.
The Ghostbusters are all arrested.
Yeah, they're arrested by the
They're actually put into jail and they're studying like blueprints. That's where we get the whole Gozer. Yeah, the Sumerian, the bring back of the Sumerian god, and they start referencing this.
Like this architect Ivo Shandor or something.
Yeah, that's exactly his name.
Oh yeah, cool. I only remember that because of the Ghostbusters video game where they reference his name a lot.
But
terrible game.
Formatting the building for this cult, so they are brought before the mayor and various other officials who are all saying like, okay, we're gonna give you a chance to go through and actually accomplish this goal. Yeah. Because regardless of what Walter Peck is saying, there are people seeing things. You're already in custody, so your life is but your freedom is sort of on the line here. It's like whether you're right or you're wrong. So what's the harm in letting them go have some fun?
So they get kind of approval by the mayor. They go off on their thing, but then at the same time, roughly around the same time, Dana and Lewis eventually meet up, and like Lewis is all like, I'm the keymaster, and Dana's all, I'm the gatekeeper, and then as key meets gate, I should say.
Yes,
they have sex on the altar in front of the temple.
I didn't know that.
No, that's literally it. That's how.
So
I didn't know it. When I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That I saw it years later. I was like, oh no.
So they're released from custody, and so Venkman, Egon, Ray, and Winston make their way to the apartment complex and start scaling the building from the inside, not the outside. Yeah. They start climbing up the stairs in the building.
Yes, a lot less dramatic. And then they eventually, make their way to the temple and are greeted by, Gozer itself, I guess I should say, because it's kind of meant to just be formless.
Gozer itself and Dana and Lewis, who are now the actual dogs, trapped inside the shells of these dogs, Zool and Gibi Gortho.
Yeah. and Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes, all my favorite dogs are there.
Yes.
So they confront Gozer, who attempts to kill them in a very humorous scene.
Yes.
So they start firing, and it turns out they cannot kill this Gozer. He disappears, and they think they've won, but they start hearing its voice.
And he's all like, choose your destructor.
And Ray cannot clear his mind, even though Venkman pleads everyone to. And the mascot for the Stay Puffed brand of marshmallows comes to destroy everyone. Which is
like a combination of the Michelin Man and the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah.
If the best way to put it. And like all of a sudden, just giant Marshmallow Man just starts coming towards the building.
He's wreaking havoc on the city. So they have to destroy this being. So something referenced earlier in the movie is that they are not supposed to cross the streams, or else every molecule in your body will explode rapidly and the entire universe will self-destruct upon itself, or something to that degree.
It's something like overly dramatic to the point of like, what?
Exactly, something really hazardous and dangerous that'll like delete all life as we know it. Right. So they decide to do that.
And they pointed at the open temple to try and like sever the link between the real world and whatever spirit realm they're working with.
Yes. And they succeed.
Yay!
Everything is closed down.
It pretty much just goes down pretty quick at the end.
Yeah, it's like... Stay Puft Marshmallow Man explodes. They free Dana, after a brief scene thinking that they're gone forever, they free Dana and Lewis from their shells.
Yep.
And they walk out into a cheering crowd as the Ghostbusters theme plays, and then credits roll.
Yep. And that's a little bit that.
That is Ghostbusters 1984.
Oh, man. Then...
Now for Ghostbusters 2016.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So, same basic setup, but slightly different.
I mean, yeah. This is very much in the realm of the same themes kind of remake, but it's not a sequel and it's not a hard remake.
Right.
It's like it's the same basic like universe to play around with, but it's not the same universe that the original ones happen in. I think people have tried to pose the theory that they happen in the same universe and it's actually a sequel, but I think that's stupid.
I do too.
So yeah, but anyway,
because we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So Erin Gilbert, played by Kristen Wiig, is an aspiring professor. Well, she has worked for a little while, but she's aspiring tenure.
Yeah.
At this university,
which actually is established to be Columbia.
Right.
Yeah.
Until is it Columbia? I think it's a different university, and then the one that Melissa McCarthy and...
No. It's definitely... Because the one that Melissa McCarthy and everyone, they're in, like, some community...
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. But it's... Yeah, she's attempting for tenure at Columbia University. And in the process gets approached... We should say, the movie opens with this other... kind of similar fashion to the original.
It's the same thing as the library, but it takes place in... a manor.
In like some historical manor where a tour was taking place and a ghost appears and fucks with the tour guide.
Zach Woods.
And the owner of said, well, I guess the curator or something, like of the property.
Played by Ed Begley Jr.
Yeah. He approaches, what was her name again? The character's name?
Erin Gilbert.
Erin Gilbert, there we go. He approaches Erin Gilbert and being like, hey, I read your book. And she's like, what book? And he's like, this book you wrote about ghosts. And she's like, crap, I thought those were gone. It's like, no, it's on Amazon. Okay.
Yeah, it's everywhere online because as she finds out later, in her office, her co-writer on the book, Abby Yates, posted it.
Played by Melissa McCarthy.
Yes, because she needs additional revenue. So off Erin goes to this community college to confront her about this.
And then we also, in the process, are introduced to Kate McKinnon's character.
Jill Holtzman, who is working as an assistant. Not really an assistant, it's like a...
kind of partner.
Yeah, they're like partners because she knows her stuff too.
Yeah, it's like her very eccentric partner. And Erin goes up to her and is like, hey, I need you to take this book down because I can't risk this dealing with my tenure. And she's like, no. And you're telling me you've had someone approach you being like, hey, there's a ghost here. I will take it down. Fine, I'll take it down if you let me go with you and actually study this. And so that's pretty much
off to the manor they go.
That's the initial inciting. And so they go off to the manor and, are doing the basic Ghostbusters thing, searching for ghosts. And there's a brief interchange outside where it's like, oh, the person who interacted with her might have been a ghost, but then he comes back up and is like, oh, no, I was talking about...
Right.
I was referencing the father of this guy. This is his son,
right?
Who has the
Ed Mulgrave, Jr., which is actually a funny joke. But,
yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, that's kind of a somewhat pointless scene.
So the ghost approaches them in this manner and
barfs on Erin,
and they freak out and run outside. But they're excited because they saw a ghost and wee yippee yaha for a little while until it turns out
that this is being filmed by
Abby,
and then it gets online, and then.
Or it wasn't filmed by Abby, it was filmed by Jillian, but presumably Abby must have posted it, right?
Yeah, and then Erin's boss finds out and is like finds the video and is like, yeah, you're crazy, leave. And so she gets fired.
This looks bad on us.
Yeah.
So
she gets fired and goes back to,
the community college's lab, and she's like, okay, so I guess I'm stuck here now, and Abby's like, that's all right, we have equipment, and then they're thrown out of the facility because after approaching for some funding,
they realize they didn't know that they were still here.
The dean's like, we thought your department was gone. So he throws them out.
They steal some equipment, and they go off to find a new place, and they first to go to, like, the iconic,
the Ghostbusters
firehouse.
The firehouse. You're like, oh, they're gonna get in the firehouse, and then it's like, no, that's too expensive.
Yeah, it has a very of the times thing. It's like, oh shit, yeah, rent in New York is horrible.
Yeah,
and then so they end up moving above a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, above the wonton store.
Yeah, and so they get all set up there.
They get all their stuff set up there. They have interviews for a secretary played by Chris Hemsworth, who
kind of defies defies like all logic of how dumb he is. Like, it got to a point where I was like, all right, this is just weird.
The fact that he is dumb was not funny, but some of the results of it I thought were funny.
Yeah.
So they hire him mainly in part because he was the only candidate. Not to mention the fact that Aaron has a humongous attraction towards him.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Rowan North, played by Neil Casey, is rumbling around New York City.
He's the one who
mumbling to himself and making creepy comments.
Yeah, like he had placed this device at the starting location that kind of brought this ghost out, which he established later. But,
right, and he's sort of talking to Leslie Jones's character, Patty Tolan, in the subway, like talking rhetoric about crazy things to come, and she's like, "Get out of here!"
Yeah, and then he goes down the tracks, and Leslie follows him, and it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's going on down here? And then you find this device, it explodes, all of a sudden a ghost appears, this like ghost covered in electricity, and Patty runs the fuck away.
Right.
And then makes her way, eventually to the Ghostbusters. Was there a scene in between there? Or is it basically
I don't believe so.
I think there's a bit of like back and forth, like of them playing around in the lab, but then all of a sudden it's like Patty's there, and it's like, oh, what's up?
Right. She's like, you guys the Ghostbusters? And she after explaining her case to them, she takes them to the subway with them lugging their equipment around. They don't have proton packs, not yet. No. They have it on these carts. They have
like a prototype version where they have to have it on
a neck strap and everything, but it's not a proton pack. It's like on a cart. It has to be wired to the cart and then attached to the person with the gun. Anyways,
they go down. They find the results of this little device, and they're like, "Oh, this is really impressive. What is this?" And all of a sudden, Ghost appears,
and they zap the shit out of it, or at least attempt to, and
before having to run away from the oncoming train.
Right, subway car slams into it and gets goo everywhere.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the ghost kind of gets trapped on the train on the last.
Yeah, which is a little strange.
But... little inconsistent.
Oh well.
So yeah, that happens. They establish, oh hey, we've got another ghost encounter. We've got to work on our equipment. And Patty's like, hey, I'm good with historical locations in New York. Let me help out.
I know this town.
Which I kind of like a bit of the subversion. Like when you see the trailer for it, it's like, oh, she thinks we think, oh, she's gonna be like she's this black lady of the street sort of shit. It's like, no, she's literally just a history nerd.
Right, which is a lot better than the trailers made it out.
Exactly.
To be, but we'll get into that as well.
Yeah.
So after perfecting equipment and getting actual proton packs, they go to the rock show.
Yes.
The rock show, which Rowan is actually at.
Yep.
So it can be presumed that he's responsible as well because he's putting down these ley lines, as we'll learn.
Yeah. Well, he's putting them on top of ley line concentration points.
Right. They're devices on top of the ley lines. He's not creating them. Anyways.
And so they go in and they're searching around and stuff.
Right.
In this
they're hired by the man who owns the theater. I guess
manager.
He must run the theater.
Yeah.
And while this rock show is going on, they're in the catacombs,
the
backstage, twisting halls, and they get chased by a possessed mannequin.
Yep. Kind of a funny scene with Patty being like, she goes into a room full of mannequins, and she's like, "Okay, room full of mannequins. No, thank you." And I was like, "Yes, that was actually really good."
So, after attempting to zap it, a horned demon comes out and flies towards the actual concert, so they have to...
and everyone in the concert thinks, oh, that's a really cool effect, but then it's like, no, this is a ghost! Right.
So they have to run into the theater, and with all these people there, attempt to shoot it down, which...
Yeah, which ends up working out with a bit of... comedic ensuing,
after various
on Patty and everything.
Yeah, after various hijinks, they actually trap it and get it into the containment unit, similar to the Slimer escapade.
And this gives them a lot more public face than I think even the Slimer escapade goes, because it's like, oh, they're doing it in front of a full
right.
concert.
There's a bunch of people watching it happen.
Exactly.
So,
and so they go back.
So they capture it, and they're like, "Woohoo, we got one!" And they go back, like you said, they go back to their firehouse.
No, the Chinese shop.
Chinese shop. Well, yeah. Yes.
And then they're and then they're approached by we've seen him before, but he's approached by
Bill Murray's
character cameoing
Dr. Martin Heiss,
and he's this anti-ghost believer, and he's all
he's a official debunker.
So he goes up there being like, "Hey, could you guys maybe chill with this? This is stupid." And he's all like, the Ghostbusters are all like, we have an actual ghost, and Bill Murray, I'm just going to call him Bill Murray because I don't care, he's all like, well, I'd love to see it. And they're like, no. And Aaron's like, what? No, we gotta do it. We gotta show
him I'm sick of being Ghost Girl because of her past. Ghost Girl, which is casually dropped in there.
Yeah.
So she frees it. It knocks Bill Murray out of the window.
Yep.
And after a brief police investigation...
Which the whole scene, when you realize, is like, wow, this was only slightly necessary. This is kind of a forgettable scene.
Because you think there's going to be some police repercussions, but then they're reprimanded by agents working for the mayor, and they're taken to the mayor's office. The office of Mayor Bradley, played by Andy Garcia.
Yep.
So, after talking to him a little bit, it's like, yeah, we know these things exist. These things have been around for a while.
And you guys need to chill the hell out, because we don't need this as a public face. And then there's this, like, weirdly long interchange between Aaron and... damn it, what's her name again?
Which one?
The Melissa McCarthy.
Abby.
Aaron and Abby, where they're, like, this whole cat in the bag.
Yeah, it's
which just drags on. Like, whatever, I'll get into that later.
So basically, you are allowed to continue your work, but we are going to vehemently deny that you are in any way valid. Yes. Yeah. You are crackpots, and we will go on every news station and report this. Yes. So that's mildly upsetting, but they do it anyways.
So they kind of go on to their thing, and I forget what's happening.
At the hotel.
The hotel where the...
Well, first after mapping, they start mapping the ley lines after hearing where these various cases are coming from. They map out the ley lines, and it points to the hotel, which is where they go, and they find Rowan working on this freement unit at the bottom to free all these spirits
into the world and everything.
Right, and after being like,
the classic portal in the sky sort of trope.
Yeah. So they're like, you're going to jail, and he's like, make me, and then he electrocutes himself.
He is dead.
He is dead, and they're like, okay, case closed. Again, another scene as they're leaving where it's like, okay, thanks for all the good work. We're going to pretend that we're going to call you crackpots, and we're going to fake arrest you. And we towed your vehicle, which is nice.
And then they go back, and Abby is then possessed
by Rowan's ghost and attacks
Patty.
Attacks Patty and Jillian. She starts destroying the equipment. But after a brief tussle, the ghost flies out of her body and inhabits the body of Kevin.
And Chris Hemsworth fame.
Yes. Down on the sidewalk, and he rides away on his motorbike. Meanwhile, Aaron has Rowan's notebook and starts noticing these cryptic things, and
how Rowan was planning to die and become the leader of all these ghosts.
Yeah, this was a part of his plan. So she goes
off to the mayor,
who is dining in this fine eating establishment with his councilwoman.
Yeah, and it's like and Aaron's freaking out, being like, "Hey, we have to evacuate the city because there's going to be a bunch of shit going down." And Mayor's like, "No."
And that's it.
That's it. So it's just kind of that's it. All
so
right.
Kevin, possessed by Rowan, makes his way to the hotel, back to where the Freement facility is, and frees ghosts, and
pandemonium ensues.
It's pandemonium.
Again.
A bunch of scenes that we can probably go into later in terms of shots and their value, but it's just a bunch of Bustin' makes me feel good around New York City.
Yeah.
While
there's a Macy's Day Parade kind of reference to like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like there's a bunch of ghost balloons. And then
so Rowan is still in the body of Kevin at the hotel, forcing the army.
The National Guard who's come out to they do a dancing, but you don't actually see that until the end credits.
Right.
And then the Ghostbusters are they re-meet up with Aaron and just head down to the hotel before getting just surrounded by this army of like kind of old-timey ghosts. And it just kind of goes, they start using all their new equipment and everything that they've established.
All the stuff that they had created, which there was an alleyway scene that we skipped, but
it's whatever.
Yeah,
it's like, and I guess it establishes that ghosts can kind of be like destroyed in this and not just captured, because like they have all these weapons and everything, and they're like
trapping them and ripping apart.
They're like gooifying all these guys and everything. It's like what?
Which is an interesting take.
Yeah, but I just wouldn't. They never really establish it. It's just kind of. But at the same time, I guess they kind of want to make their own new logic. Yeah. But anyway.
So they approach Kevin Rowan, I'll start calling him that, at the hotel, and after a brief taunting them scene, he abandons Kevin's body and starts flying around. They're trying to destroy him, and then he does the Gozer scene, pick your destroyer, and they don't really pick one. It's more of a, like, who do you want to be destroyed by, and Leslie Jones Jones's character, Patty.
Like,
I keep forgetting her name.
And
she's
then she's
like,
all like,
something cute, something adorable, and he's like, oh, this? And he transforms into the Ghostbusters logo.
And then it becomes like the little ghost inside the little like circle and cross.
And then brings it to life as this massive Oogie Boogie looking nightmare.
He really does look like Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas.
And actually, these final scenes are really short. He chases them around, but they're able to trap him with the accelerators.
Yeah, like him doing that all of a sudden opens this massive portal underneath the hotel, which more ghosts are spilling out of even more so now.
Right.
And then they're just trying to they're getting chased by him and all this sort of stuff, and they realize, wait a minute, if we put off a big enough explosion or something in the portal, it might reverse polarity and start sucking the ghost back in, and enter the scene where previously Slimer had actually hijacked the Ecto-1.
Yes.
He shows back up.
I forgot he makes a cameo appearance in this movie, but he's also a catalyst for the ending.
Exactly.
He actually has importance.
Exactly. It's like he and female Slimer.
Yes, which is gross.
Whatever. Like, they come back, and he's driving towards them, and they kind of jump out of the way. He starts to jump into the portal, and then he shoot it with the lasers, and it blows up. Portal goes backwards, everybody starts getting sucked in. Along with Rowan as a giant monster.
Now Rowan grabs Abby at the last minute and pulls her into the portal with him as he's getting sucked in. So Erin finds a tethered hook, hooks it onto herself, and dives in after her and saves her. Like that's not a huge thing. It's kind saves her. And
it's kind of meant to be like kind of this reconciliation of friendship, but it's kind of already established.
It's already they're already friends again. Like that was just the beginning.
She jumps in, she comes back. They come back inexplicably with white hair because I guess that's what happens when you go to the other side.
They got to dye it,
which is also apparently a reference to Real Ghostbusters again. Like that's apparently a reference to an episode where that happens. I've
only seen a few episodes of Real Ghostbusters.
I just looked that up. That happens.
And cleanup. Everything else at the end is cleanup. It's like, oh, this person's here saying thank you. The mayor's here trying to deny what everyone saw. It's just wrapping up tethered.
They're now established to have like government funding, so they can do whatever they want. So they get the firehouse to work in and everything.
Yes, they move into the firehouse. That's
there's like a cameo by Sigourney Weaver playing like Holtzman's mentor character or something.
Yeah,
and like that's pretty much it. There's also a what was Winston's actor?
It's Ernie, but
he shows up as well.
References throughout this movie.
Yeah, but it's nothing but it just wraps up, and there's an end credit scene like teasing. Oh, they like Patty heard a tape that said Zool on it. Oh no!
Yeah,
but yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah,
those are the movies.
Jesus.
Yes. So as we dive into actually discussing these for a brief period. So what did you
for a long time I've been kind of down on the original. Like I'd always seen it, people kept going like, oh, this is the best thing ever. It's like I've never been a huge fan of Bill Murray in the first place. Rewatching this, it's so charming. It's got so many iconic lines, mostly by Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Your Honor, this man has no dick.
Right.
Like that, and like that sort of thing.
For me, Rick Moranis pulls the whole movie together. I really do like Rick Moranis. I wish I understand why, but I wish he hadn't left Hollywood. I wish he was still in stuff. But I just really like him as an actor, and his lines in the movie, he plays off that awkwardness really well. My favorite part of that entire dinner sequence or party sequence where he's running around talking about these things is not only entirely ad-libbed, but it's one continuous take.
Yeah,
it's fantastic that he can pull something like that off.
He pulls the awkward character perfectly, and not like and like it's just enough where you get some secondhand embarrassment, but not so much as like, all right, just make this character stop.
Right.
He's also just a little bit endearing enough.
Well, in the second one, they give him like a bigger role. Right. He's like, you are a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, he actually becomes a Ghostbuster
instead of just their tax handler, which is funny because they reference it at the end of the first movie, like, does anyone do your taxes? And then he starts doing the taxes in the second one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the comedy is obviously with it being a comedy.
It's very it's got it's I mean as it is with the newer one, it's very SNL pedigree between Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. Was Bill Murray SNL? I can't remember now.
He was.
Okay,
was he? Oh, I gotta look this up now. I believe
I know Dan Aykroyd,
but
he was either
maybe Bill Murray was on SCTV.
He was either part of SNL or he was. At least Dan Aykroyd. He was either part of SNL or at least hosted pretty often.
Common host.
Exactly. but anyway, like is a lot of older like 1980s SNL comedy to that, which I was never really a big fan of. Like I like SNL okay, but for a lot of the recent stuff, I've kind of been just whatever about it.
Well, that's everyone's sort of
exactly.
That's everyone's thought behind it.
And then
Bill Murray was on SNL. Yeah,
okay,
I thought so.
Yeah, I thought so as well.
That's like early years.
Yeah, exactly. So and so it's just this just fun little movie. There's nothing a whole lot to break down about it. There's nothing spectacular about the shooting style or anything other than like the single shot party scene.
Mm-hmm. I really like I was saying with the single shot party scene that's ad-libbed, something I kind of knew, but I didn't entirely know until like looking it up and delving into facts on this movie. The script was a guideline. Every single scene in this movie has ad-lib dialogue to some extent. The script was just something for them to follow along with, and I didn't know.
That doesn't surprise me with a lot of Dan Aykroyd. Like a lot of, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all with Bill Murray.
Right.
A lot with Dan Aykroyd, he's very much got the very kind of intelligent, like very straightforward speaking tone that I figure a lot of the lines he came up with, even just this like technical mumbo jumbo. I'm sure he came up with that on the fly.
Right. Well, he knows some of that stuff. Some of that stuff is taken from parapsychology because he even has a book on the subject.
Yeah, like he's a smart freaking guy.
He's into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Supernatural. Harold Ramis is a joy.
Oh my god.
Never once smiling. He's just in that really stoic sort of I collect spores character.
He's such a good character to that in this entire thing. There is a very brief scene where he smiles right before he eats the Twinkie. It's more of a smirk.
Do you think it's that, or do you think it's like him opening his mouth?
He does like right before he does it, he has a bit of a kind of like a sideline.
Maybe yeah. Maybe
it's more of a slash of the mouth than anything.
Maybe I didn't pick up on it.
That's
because it's more like a snarky. It's less him being happy and more just like I told you.
It's more just his response to that's a big Twinkie.
Yeah,
like that's the closest I can think of. But otherwise, completely stoic, and it's amazing.
Right.
Draw that in comparison to the new one, I'm kind of down on it. I've been trying, like, I rewatched it. I had the opposite effect. Like, first time I saw it in theater, and I loved the hell out of it. Like, I loved the idea of having an all-female Ghostbusters team. I liked the actresses that were involved, and I overlooked a lot of the issues that are very clear in it. And then I rewatched it, I was like, wow, more than half of these jokes just fail entirely.
Yeah,
like it's not even like, okay, maybe that one wasn't that funny. It's like they're just like, how could anyone think this was funny to begin with?
Right. And that's sort of the thing is a lot of people were down on it when it was coming out.
Yeah, because just it's like, oh, film of Ghostbusters, that's stupid. It's like,
yeah, and there were people that are like, no, it's because the trailer wasn't funny. The trailer was not funny, I'll give you that, but a lot of people were down on it because it was female Ghostbusters. There's no denying that. There's evidence on the internet.
We can try to be kind of non-biased about it, but to be non-biased about it would be ignoring a huge part of the critical acclaim.
If you were down on it personally, that doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't like female Ghostbusters. Maybe you saw the trailer and didn't think it was funny. That's valid. Yeah. But there was a lot of hate for that. And watching the movie, I don't go into it hating female Ghostbusters, but I don't go into it loving it either. It's just a thing that's there. It doesn't really influence my opinion at all. It's
like it's cool in and of itself, but it plays it pretty non-affecting. Like there's a couple scenes where it's like gender affects it a little bit, but I figured there'd be a bit more political slant to it. But
there's one joke that was kind of grossing me out that I didn't remember from the first time around, where they goad Aaron into going over to the sound wave, the recording, and it's a fart, and I was like, oh, really, a fart? That's gross. And then she's like, what if I told you it came from the front? And I was like, well, that's even more gross.
Yeah,
both of those are equally gross, but them stacked on top of each other. Why is this in the movie?
Exactly. It's just like, it kind of just doesn't really add anything.
It does not. It doesn't. That being said,
they're still funny.
There are like the entire cast of 1984 Ghostbusters. I love all of them.
They're so good. The chemistry between them is just the way they play off each other is perfect. Even Winston, who a lot of people are down on, just because like he doesn't have a huge role,
which is unfortunate. He was supposed to have a bigger role, but that was also when it was supposed to be played by Eddie Murphy, and then Eddie Murphy backed out.
Yeah,
but with the newer Ghostbusters, there's some characters that I really like because I really like their actresses. Melissa McCarthy, as I've told various people, is like my favorite actor or actress from this most recent millennium. I think she's hilarious in everything she's in, even if the movie's not funny. I think she's funny as a character. Bridesmaids, I hate that movie. But every scene that Melissa McCarthy is in, I'm just like entranced.
Exactly.
I love her. I really do.
It's just, but they just don't play off each other. It's like they're good, kind of like they have occasionally, like each one has cool, like funny individual lines, but when you try to put them in a team, it's like it feels more awkward.
Right. Well, Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, those two, I think in the movie, at least in my opinion, they play off each other really well. A scene, as soon as it started, I was like, really? This is hackneyed, is when they're at the police investigation after Bill Murray was thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
And he's like, a ghost did it. So, like, Patrick Swayze, make it pop. And I'm like, really? But then Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy pull it through because they just start talking to each other about Keanu Reeves or Patrick Swayze movies. And I was like, this is that's funny. Good. That's like a lot of, I don't know, that's interesting dialogue. And it goes on so long that it becomes funny.
But there's kind of, I have a kind of an opposite effect with that, at least in several. That scene in particular, that was very funny. I love that.
Yeah.
But there's just other moments with that happens, like, when they first get to the rock concert and they're about to go in and they both say it at the, like, let's do this at the same time, and they kind of like are like, oh, I'm sorry, like it just kind of feels.
Say it?
It's like, were you gonna say it? Do you want to say it?
Right, that is a little forced comedy. It's supposed to be a subversion type of comedy.
Exactly, but with the way it was played off, it was kind of like just kind of falls flat.
Also, there was a couple in the background staring at the camera, and I wish that someone had gone over and been like, can you like move out of the shot? They're just smiling at the camera, like. Did no one see this in testing and be like, we either got to do this again or we got to make that couple move? That bothered me.
Yeah. But yeah, like that was a little detailed. But then and then another one, the biggest one for me was when they're at the mayor's office and there's this whole thing. Oh, so they're telling us the cat's out of the bag. It's like, but what if we try to put the cat back into the bag? And there's this whole like
people have tried before to put the cat back in the bag, but the cat always breaks out of the bag again.
Exactly. It's like there's this 30 to 45 second exchange between, you know, Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, and it's just not funny. Like, I look at it every time.
It's not just them either. It's everyone. The mayor's security guards, his councilwoman, they're all in on it.
And I understand it, but like at the same time, it's like, why? You could have had a funny exchange, but you have this awkward thing that's just kind of like, all right, whatever.
Right.
It's like these characters are meant to be, you know, the kind of medium by which the audience experiences it. It's my problem with Seth MacFarlane characters, where they're building up to this kind of more dramatic scene or anything, but then it just kind of gets cut short, and the main character's like, oh, okay, that's anticlimactic. Then the audience is going to be like that as well.
Well, Family Guy was sort of a pioneer of jokes that do not end either. Like
exactly,
like the one that sticks in my mind is the one where Peter's trying to get a dead frog out of one of his kids' room, and he keeps scooping it, and it keeps falling against the window, and it goes on for like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
So there's a period of time in joke telling where it can go on for just long enough to be funny. Like, it can start out not funny. It's long enough to be funny, and then once it goes past that point, then it's not funny anymore. And that doesn't always apply.
Yeah, I think if the people doing it are good enough at delivery and funny enough, you can do that for a long friggin' time.
Well, you have to vamp on it a little bit as well. Exactly. Because, like, it wasn't like the scene I was talking about with the Patrick Swayze movies scene.
Well, yeah, because that's such a specific situation. It's like,
right, it wasn't
so funny.
It wasn't even just them being like, Roadhouse. Oh, I like Roadhouse. Do you like Roadhouse? I like Roadhouse. Roadhouse was a good movie. No, they keep vamping on this scenario, drawing it out, actually having dialogue on it, and the best part is right when it cuts back to the cop, as he's about to be like, look, we're gotta arrest you or something like that. You can hear Melissa McCarthy in the background go, yeah, the ghost from Point Break. It's like, what? and that's funny. You like so barely funny. Hear it.
Yeah.
Something like that is that's I don't know, that's good humor. All the scenes, some people were actually down on this in their reviews of the movie. They were like, these are pointless, they shouldn't be in there. I think some of the funniest scenes in the movie are the delivery scenes with Melissa McCarthy and the delivery boy, I don't know his name, where he's like, what is this? This looks like dishwater, and there's one shrimp in there. And I think a water
that was kind of funny.
Those really specific scenes where it's like the one that plays during right before the credits, or like in the middle of the credits. It's kind of in
the middle of like the like the tentpole credits,
where he's like, I know what you did, thanks, and he gives her the thing, and she's like,
It's
what
just,
is this? There's no soup in here. It's just wontons.
It's just like a little bit of soup, and she's like, I just want a normal ratio of wontons to soup. That's it. And that was really good. I did like that.
Melissa McCarthy needs a lot of awards.
She deserves them. she kind of pulled that movie out for me.
What are you doing?
Like, but I really was pretty down on it. Like,
no, I understand.
It's very clear who my winner is this week, obviously, but it's just it's just kind of thinking back and forth between them. It's
obviously, the effects are better. On the featurette on the new Ghostbusters DVD, they have like a effects 30 years later, and they have Ivan Reitman there, like, talking about the effects.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, obviously, back then we couldn't do some of these things, but and then it pulls in Paul Feig, and he's like, but now we can have this, and he even does this weird thing where he's like, personally, I'm not a fan of CGI, but it lets us do some things that we could never have dreamed of doing, and it's really weird.
It kind of has that very much feeling of trying to kind of cover all bases. It's like,
yes, I know. I am with you fans that like Frank Oz puppets. I do not like CGI, but
I do like CGI, and so he gets both sides.
Money.
Exactly. So it gets you both. It gets both sides of it.
I don't know about that, bud.
Yeah, it did okay at the box office. I don't even know if it made its return. Did it?
I'm sure it did.
It probably did.
It's a comedy. Most comedies end up making their return,
especially with such a big cast to it. It was just going to make it a lot of a draw.
Yeah, very few comedies are ever flops.
On the subject of effects, that was one thing I was thinking about. How in the original one, I can't remember who said it in this interview, they actually made this cool point where there's a whole lot of ghosts that aren't humanoid in any way, like Slimer in a couple of cases. They actually establish, a lot of these ghosts are the ghosts of aliens. Like, it's like, I can't remember who specifically, it may have been the original creator.
Probably Dan Aykroyd.
Probably Dan Aykroyd.
Because Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis were pulled in to like correct Dan Aykroyd's scripts. If you see anything about Dan Aykroyd's original scripts, they're crazy. There's hell, there's aliens, there's the future. He's a madman. Yeah, and then other people have to come in and fix what he did, or else he's going to ruin the picture company.
Yeah. But like, and so they established that in like that one interview, and there was a whole lot of range to the ghosts and everything in the original. Then in the new one, there's only Slimer, and all the other ones, minus like the demon character, they're all humans who are related to the locations they find them in. So I thought that was kind of dull. And it was also, and even that, pulling that in, they established, okay, the ghost in the original place, it's a daughter who went crazy here and killed her family. Then in the next one, it's, there used to be a prison near here where they electrocuted prisoners. Where the hell did the demon come from? Because that's what I was
going to say. Is like if we're talking about people, the only two specific examples I can think of are the opening lady and then the jailman. There's like Puritans in the streets, and I get that, but they do have the Macy's parade sort of deal. They have the demon guy.
Yeah.
Rowan is just Rowan, but he transforms himself, so maybe that could have some bearing on it.
I think like it establishes that Rowan, since he understands so much about the spirit world, that he has a bit more power over it.
That's quite possible, yeah.
Yeah, and like, but that was just one of my bigger gripes about the the creativity between the two is that the new ones, it just kind of meant like mostly went with dudes, like the few that we see.
Yeah,
and then like the one demon, which it doesn't establish like. There's a big plot hole. It doesn't establish how this demon could have existed, because the first two, it explicitly says, these guys were humans in this area that they died near here, that's why their spirits are here. And the demon's just like, this happened.
I'm a demon.
Yeah, I'm a demon.
I'm a demon, hear me roar.
I think they briefly established, like on this site there may have been like some that was the hotel. The hotel was like a site of sacrifice.
The only reason the demon is there is because it's a heavy metal concert, and then Ozzy Osbourne shows up and he's like, Sharon! Yeah, exactly. And then it cuts to outside. That's the only reason.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all a heavy metal sort of gimmick, and I do completely understand that. Yeah, I would like to talk about, really quickly, something that was strange with the special effects. 3D's big nowadays. Was this movie in 3D in some theaters?
Yes, I saw it the first time I saw it was in 3D.
You saw it in 3D. Okay, because I was watching the widescreen version on the DVD, and it's weird because it's boxed, but you can tell when effects are 3D because they break through the box, and I'm like, whoa. Like when the electric ghost starts shooting lightning, it breaks through the box, and it's like whenever you read a comic panel and characters stretch across the panels. It was so freaky.
Yeah,
I've seen movies that were in 3D on DVD, and they've never done that. It was strange.
Was the wide box, was that consistent through the whole movie?
Yes.
In the 3D version in theaters, it wasn't.
Really?
It would sometimes be there and sometimes not. So
it was there the entire time, and that's why I was able to tell when the 3D segments happened, because they would break into the black lines.
So that was very.
They were like added after.
It may have just been the theater that I was at that they did that for some reason, or the way the film on the 3D film did it. It kept a widescreen to keep it more in your face sort of thing, and to kind of give the illusion of it's coming at you. They'd add the letterbox.
Maybe that was to tell the audience when to put on their 3D glasses, because you guys shouldn't have worn yours all the time, right? Because
we wore the whole. I mean, we're not going to take them on and off the entire time,
right? But there were only like 2 or 3 instances where that happened. They were big long ghost scenes, but then it would go back to normal, and I was like, if this was in 3D, then there's like 3 times 3D happens in this movie.
There are bigger scenes, like at the ending scene where the tall ghost is walking around that has a bit of depth. It's kind of inconsequential, but there are a couple scenes where it's kind of cool.
I had to get that off my chest because I had never seen a 3D movie do that on DVD. It screwed with my head.
I thought it was I thought that was kind of cool when I saw it, but otherwise it was kind of inconsequential. And the fact that it was inconsistent in the theater with the wide box was just annoying and just unprofessional in my opinion.
Now, if we talk about like just the nature of the effects, people are down on CG a lot, and I'm one of those people, and that's mainly because I'm that's mainly in my I can tell where mine comes from. I'm a big fan of horror movies, especially B horror movies, and a lot of them use puppets. Mm-hmm. So I think that has given me personally attachment to puppets over CGI.
I mean, I have a similar thing, mostly because I'm such a huge fan of Jurassic Park. Because it's like, the giant T-Rex animatronic was incredible, and I still think it's one of the best effects in Hollywood history. But just like
being said, I think that the CG in this movie was done well.
It was done really well
because they don't just like they're not just like it's a huge monster ghost. They like contort the figures, and they like when Rowan turns into the creepier version of the Ghostbusters logo, the feet like flop around. It's
like all like fabric and everything, so that's really cool.
Yeah, it
looks like he's basically turns into a person wearing a sheet over their head. I mean, a more cling-fitting sheet, obviously, but it's really cool.
Right, because a lot of times when people do CG, it's in an attempt to make it realistic. And while I understand that these are ghosts, so any semblance of realism is out the window, they still try to be cartoony with it, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I did like that. And I think that was the main reason in the original why so many of the ghost characters weren't humanoid, because it's easier just to make a non-human puppet.
Yeah.
Because, they could have tried to do some ghost thing, but that means they would have just to have a normal person, but they have to do a visual effect on them. Right. To try to make them, translucent or something, or whatever they wanted to do.
And with the effects in the original one, I do like the puppets. I like Zool. I like Slimer. They're good puppets. Yeah. However, I understand it's a method of the times, but in the scenes, only in the scenes when Lewis is being chased by his dog, whenever it's flying around those jittery
it's basically just a JPEG they move across the screen.
Yeah, it's charming to an extent, but it probably didn't hold up a week after it was in theaters.
I think with remasterings, it may have it's the same problem. It's the same problem with Blade Runner when they tried to remaster it. Is that it made a lot of the issues of it look more apparent.
That probably made it worse. I actually have photos on my phone that I can't show you because they didn't turn out well. It was me taking a picture of the TV.
Yeah, it's fine.
But when Lewis first exits the apartment building and he's running towards Central Park and the dog is chasing him, I was pausing it variously because you can see the cutout frame. It's a really small frame that the dog is on that they placed
that's amazing.
They placed over the regular film and then just moved it like stop motion but on a cell, and you can see the outline of the celluloid, and I was like, oh my lord,
that's awful. That is inexcusable.
And I believe it was Ivan Reitman, actually. I read he was upset with the one of the more recent remasterings of the film because you can see frames like that and you can see wires where you're not supposed to see wires, and he was upset because it was sort of pointing out all of the effects that he used, whereas he just wants it to be a whole experience where you don't have to notice that stuff.
Exactly.
And he was upset about it.
So yeah, that does make a lot of sense. The new one does really well, I think, with the CG. With the effects and everything. It actually kind of brings me into another point. I was thinking about it, I was thinking about, Gozer, how it's just a person wearing a cool costume.
Right.
But it kind of made me think about it as it kind of made me think of the subject matter of both of them. Very similar premise, but I think I like the newer ones more cohesive feel. Like, because the
Right.
original one is like, oh, they're ghosts. Now all of a sudden, Sumerian god. It's like, the fuck? Where did that come from? Like, I kept forgetting about that whenever I see the movie. I never really think about it. It's like, this is a movie called Ghostbusters where their main enemy is a demonic god. It's like, that's not really ghosts. I mean, it has something to do with it, but no. But then in the new one, yeah.
They compromise a bit in the second one in Ghostbusters 2 because it's not a god, but it's the ghost of like an evil overlord that now has demon powers.
Yeah, it's like which made it even worse.
Maybe they were trying to like rectify that.
Exactly.
Maybe.
But then in the new one, I actually do like it's very like they established the rules of the universe a bit better, and maybe at the expense. Maybe it's kind of the. I guess it's kind of the original Star Wars versus new Star Wars kind of debate where it's like, in the original one, they don't establish the rules of the universe. It's more of a fantasy, whereas the new one, it establishes that, that takes away from the mystique and kind of cool nature of it. Kind of similar argument, but in a more positive way, where it's like, it took away from a bit of the charm, but it also made it feel like an actual film, rather than a random series of events that happen to be kind of connected.
Right.
Whereas in this one, it's like, there's original inciting action that directly relates to what the ending action is going to be. Whereas the original, the Ghostbusters just get into the business at the right time. Where there isn't one real particular moment that's like establishing the connection to Gozer.
I actually thought about that when I thought about that when Egon was telling Winston about the Twinkie.
Yeah.
I was like, something I hadn't never thought about before. I was like, that is such a strong coincidence that just a big paranormal event is about to occur.
I think the argument might be that their inciting action is the ghost showing up at the library, and that maybe because all this paranormal energy is building up that the ghost appeared more suddenly. But at the same time, it still feels a bit shoehorned in.
Yeah.
It feels like they established, like, oh, the reason all this is happening is because there's a build-up. But they don't really draw a straight line to it, so it's kind of weird.
From a thematic pacing, from a storytelling pacing, I do agree with that.
Yeah.
If going into thematics a little bit, I think that the newer one has a really big problem with pacing.
Oh yeah. It's horrible. It's all over the place. It's the original one has SNL pedigree. The new one just feels like SNL in a lot of ways. If that makes any sense.
That actually is a good analogy because there's so much.
There's so many just random scenes where just kind of like, here's a scene where they're doing stuff. Here's a scene where they're now doing stuff.
that is such a weird thing. It's like SNL pedigree for the first one and an SNL feeling for the new one, because as far as I can tell, there's some ad-libbing in the new one, but most of it is still scripted.
It's very scripted.
And it can feel scripted, whereas in the original one, most of it's ad-libbed, and you can't... You can only tell with Bill Murray because they're all jokes.
Yeah.
Besides that, you can't really tell that it's ad-libbed. That's such a weird paradigm.
It feels so natural, and like there's some really good chemistry going on with the original people, but then the new one, it's like, it just feels stilted.
If you put like
it feels very start and stop.
I want to see someone take like short scenes from the new Ghostbusters
and try to turn it into an SNL skit.
Put it on YouTube with like weird laughter at specific points, like
oh my god, that would be
SNL
amazing.
clapping,
like just them doing the whole scene where they're doing like they're establishing, oh, here's our new equipment. That could be pulled straight out of an SNL thing, being like a parody of like, oh, this is when the Ghostbusters were first trying out their stuff and it ended up terribly.
Yeah,
it would play off perfectly. Just with more of a budget and with more like crazy effects.
Right.
It's really noticeable whenever you start to think about it. It's so weird. And it's like that's its biggest issue, I think, among several issues. That's its biggest one. That's just the pacing is weird. It just feels like a bad SNL episode that's 2 hours.
Right. And that's sort of a weird thing, is that I think that they put their humor value, because I know we talk about humor, I think they put that into weird spots in the new one, because as we were talking, okay, I'm going to compare these real quick.
Go ahead.
The original Ghostbusters, very funny, but I never really laughed out loud. I was sort of giggling to myself the whole time because it's consistently funny. It's things are always happening that you're like, that's funny.
Yeah.
The new one had a lot more had more moments than the original where I actually laughed out loud. I was like, oh my god. But then just long periods of silence where not even cracking a smile. I'm just watching a movie. Yeah. Like the interview process which is just the right amount of Kevin's character is stupid before it's just like full blown he has a mental problem. Yeah. That the interview made me laugh out loud. The scene with Patrick Swayze made me laugh out loud. But then there's a lot of real dry periods where I'm just like, yeah, that's a thing that happened. So that's another bit of pacing, I think, with the original one that they do well, is they pace their humor so it's a consistently funny movie, even if it didn't make me guffaw at any point. But also,
that's kind of like, that really is kind of the biggest comparison between the two. It's like the original one, it's a very consistently pretty funny, versus the new one's very start and stop. Like, I mean, that goes back to it. It's like, it's the pedigree of SNL versus being in the style of SNL. It's like, there's a whole lot of like good talent behind SNL, like even recently, like John Mulaney, for God's sake, you know, funny as hell guy. But if you try to do SNL episodes stretched out over a movie, it just doesn't work.
It has worked in Wayne's World, and it worked in, there was one that I had that I forgot, but
I mean, I am of the mindset I don't like
Blues
Wayne's
Brothers.
World. Blues Brothers is good.
Blues Brothers and Wayne's World. Well, you can not like it. It's a very specific, like...
I like Mike Myers sometimes.
Yeah.
But otherwise...
Well, I watched that movie for Dana Carvey. Oh, no, Mr. Donut,
I definitely don't like Dana Carvey.
Really?
I really don't.
I think he's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I guess that's just my difference with liking films, that I don't like Wayne. I don't like situational comedies like that, where I like it to be kind of, you know, a little cohesive. You know, where it's more like with Wayne's World, it's very like each scene is meant to be its own thing, whereas you know,
well, they have a connecting plot.
Well, yeah, but
it
feels more like it's there out of necessity.
Wayne's World is Austin Powers without the absurdism. There's absurdism in Wayne's World, just very little of it. Like when he notices that they're in like a kung fu thing. I don't remember if that's the first or the second one.
See, I think I actually do like Austin Powers though, because I think the absurdism adds like that, it goes just crazy enough that it's like, all right, it's consistent now, it's consistently funny, because it has this air, it has this overarching tone of just being like, okay, this is insane. I like movies like that, but the ones where it tries to be both grounded and a little bit off with its like to you know, for the sake of comedy, I just don't think it works. Whereas the original Ghostbusters, very much it's a little over the top at all times, because the characters are just kind of funny at all times.
Yeah.
And the new one is just like, it gets it has moments, but otherwise it's like whatever.
Also, quickly before we get ourselves entirely back on track, as of this recording, Vern Troyer just passed away, so
Gotta rest.
So he is now gone.
Yeah. Anyway,
the last real comparison that I can think of that I wanted to talk about, and we touched on it a little bit, is for lack of any subtlety with it, the black character in the movie.
Yes. Yeah. I mean that's what it is.
I like Ernie Hudson in this in the original Ghostbusters. I like his character a lot, but I really wish there was more of him, especially now reading that he was there from the beginning and was in the entire movie until Eddie Murphy left. That kind of pisses me off.
Yeah.
I think Ernie Hudson kind of got shafted in that movie.
He did.
Just because he wasn't the big name that Eddie Murphy was. And it wasn't like Ivan Reitman's fault. It wasn't Dan Aykroyd's fault. It was Columbia Pictures. Yeah. They lost a big actor, so they wanted it to be changed. And that's upsetting. I wish he had a bigger role, but I think that the new one kind of corrects that with Leslie Jones. And
Leslie Jones, I think, is one of my more favorite characers of the film. Like
she's pretty good. I don't find her very funny, but I find her very likable.
She's very likable.
I like her as a character. The only scene I don't really care for is she meets up with them. She's like, "I'm gonna be with you. I know the streets. That I'm gonna be in your club now." The first ghost event they go to, she's like, "Why'd they pull me into this? Why'd they?" And I found it funny, but not because it was humorous. I was like, "What are you talking about?"
You're the one who got you were so gung ho about this 10 seconds ago. Literally the literal previous scene.
I don't know.
It's not even a couple days later. I don't think.
Right, but I think they sort of rectified that. That was I don't know if it was just inadvertent, if it was the way they were writing the script, or if it was sort of a nod, because this film is full of nods.
It's nothing but nods.
So I don't know if it was that or the other, but whatever the case, I appreciate. I like the fact that she was there the whole time, rather than just another instance of a pointless character being there.
Yeah,
he has some funny lines, but he's pointless in the first movie. He really is.
He does not serve the plot at all,
and it's unfortunate.
Whereas Leslie Jones does.
Yes.
So yeah, I do. Yeah, that is. I do like that they did a lot of stuff to correct the issues with the original, and that's probably my biggest saving grace for the original one. I would be down on it a lot more if it was basically just all the problems that it has plus the problems of the original. It's just like, inconsistent, like a weird plot kind of right turn like from ghost to god, and then all this other stuff. Whereas this one has felt very consistent. It had this guy who's very into ghosts. He wants to free them because he's, he's this very Reddit neckbeard type. He is.
I enjoy that.
I don't care about ostracizing our Reddit fan base.
Fan base?
I mean, if we have that.
Yeah, I like him all right as a character. I know his whole point is to be weird and creepy, but that doesn't mean I have to like it.
Exactly. That's always been my thing with, people like characters who are very annoying comedic relief types. Deliberately annoying is still annoying.
Yeah, exactly.
Same deal with this.
That's my problem with Kate McKinnon's character in the movie, is that she's crazy for the sake of crazy, and I'm like, but she's so annoying and she's so, like, crazy. Well, yeah, but she's supposed to be crazy. That doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I wish she would talk less.
Exactly. It's like, I didn't ask for her to be that. No one asked for her to be that. It's just Kate McKinnon.
I didn't ask for anything.
I mean, I like Kate McKinnon, but her character was hit and miss for me.
Yeah.
There were a couple scenes where I was like, all right, that's kind of fun, but otherwise it's just like, eh. It kind of has she has the consistency of character that Egon had with his, but in a different way. Like, she was consistently crazy, whereas he was consistently stoic.
Yeah.
Where he was still weird, but it's kind of, you don't see a lot of characters that are both weird and also very, like, straight-spoken like he is.
Well, and perhaps that's the point.
Exactly.
Because they sort of take away the Bill Murray character and sort of combine some of his quirks and his joke-telling into her with that Egon aspect, and that makes her crazy. And I guess that was the point, to keep her consistently...
Do you mean Harold Ramis? You said Bill Murray. They
took Bill Murray and combined it with the Egon character.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
she's like a mixture of those two characters, and I'm thinking that was the point, because they, in the background, I want to say it's a B plot, but it's more of like a D plot. Is that Aaron and Abby have this problem, this falling out, and they're apparently still reconciling over it, as the ending points to. And maybe when they were writing the script, since they were focusing on that, they were like, well, we need more comic relief. But she's the Egon character. Well, we'll just make her sort of Bill Murray, too, because we don't have his archetype in the film right now.
Yeah.
So maybe that was sort of a product of a need to... an avenue to have more of a insane aspect to the movie.
Yeah, I think that... Yeah, that definitely rings... Like, that definitely sounds like something a production would do for the sake of that. It's like, well, we need to edit this character some for the sake of...
Right.
A previous character that was a big draw. Like, because the big draw of the original one was Bill Murray. This one, there was no real Bill Murray character other than Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon, I think, was the biggest outspoken draw that I knew of. Like, everybody that I knew who was looking forward to the film was saying, like, oh, Kate McKinnon's going to be a character. It's going to be hilarious. Whereas, Melissa McCarthy was like, people liked her, but they weren't really coming for her specifically.
Right. Well, she's... So, I'm thinking that maybe Melissa McCarthy was less of a draw and Kate McKinnon was more so, because Melissa McCarthy isn't really SNL now. She's not SNL anymore, even though she's on there occasionally. She is she's verified film actress now.
Yeah, she's doing her thing.
She was in like 1 million movies before Ghostbusters, and she'll be in 1 million more.
And this is kind of like... Kristen Wiig is SNL as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't know a whole lot that she's in, so I didn't know if she was going to be a huge draw.
Well, the biggest thing that she was in that drew a lot of attention before this was Bridesmaids.
That was it. I was thinking that. I was like, there's something. And I know I've seen her face in a couple other various things. I just can't name them off the top of my head.
Right. And that's sort of the draw between, like, well, there's SNL actors / actresses, and then there's people that are on SNL, like Melissa McCarthy, who would, like, there's some people that'll host like 1 million times, so they might as well just be a part of the cast.
Pretty much.
But you get to a point where it's like, do you associate them more with what launched their career, or are they established now?
Yeah. I guess it kind of depends on how you like. I guess it depends on how long you've seen them. Like, if someone grew up seeing Melissa McCarthy on SNL more often, they're like, oh, that's what I know her for.
Yeah, I saw her in Bridesmaids, and then she hosted SNL like 3 times. So
yeah,
I know that.
So yeah, something like that.
Yeah, whatever you want to do with it. So yeah, is there anything else we want to cover?
I mean,
by way of this sort of comparison?
By direct comparison, not really. We seem to have hit pretty much ate
we
every
hit the
major
actors,
temple.
we hit special effects, we hit thematics and storytelling. I
want to just go through all the fucking references.
Let's do that. That'd be fun. Just want to go through as many references as we can think of. Oh, something I do want to talk about. Something I do want to talk about real quick before that. So the original movie has the Ghostbusters theme.
Yes.
The new movie has 3 different versions of the Ghostbusters theme.
No, I remember that.
Can I just say I like them all except for one.
The Fall Out Boy one?
Yes, the Fall Out Boy one.
So bad. It's so bad.
And that's not a slight on Fall Out Boy. Maybe it's just because I like the Parker Jr. one, but
I mean, it's just so bad. Like, they're driving up to the fucking rock concert and that's playing. I listen to it. It's like, what the hell am I listening to?
You know what? I didn't think about that. The scene that followed it. I guess that's probably exactly why they did it. Because any other scene in the movie, when they use that, they have the sort of an orchestral one, and I really like that one.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
It sounds neat.
It feels more like dramatic.
Yeah, it feels like something they would play in like a TV movie, like that comes out 20 years after the TV show. They'll play a revamped, like, version of the theme song to show that shit's getting real. That's sort of what it felt like.
It's like, you know, listening to like the Mario theme song back in the day versus you listening to it nowadays. It's like dee 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 dee, and now it's like now it's all da 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 da.
To give you that epic. But the Fall Out Boy thing feels just about as pointless as the ensuing scene.
Like, it didn't even have the same lyrics and everything. It was like the basic tune. And then they had their kind of own music to it, and it was just bad.
And when I say that the ensuing scene was pointless, I don't mean it didn't affect the plot. It obviously affected the plot because it pulls in the mayor and Bill Murray's character and everything. But the setting, the fact that it was a demon, Ozzy Osbourne's cameo, they're rocking out, the whole nature of it, like the backdrop to the plot, seems pointless. I think it could have been anywhere but a rock show. It doesn't have to be a hotel, but
yeah, they could have played around with that a bit more. That one felt very,
It could have even been a rock show, but just do it a different.
I mean, again, it feels like an SNL bit.
Yeah, like, what if the Ghostbusters were at a rock concert and our guest of the week, Ozzy Osbourne, was also there, and he's like, "I'll bust ghosts with you."
Yeah, exactly. It feels like someone had a bad idea for an SNL bit, put the Ghostbusters in it, and made it work.
I'll bust the ghost of my liver. That's more Dudley Moore.
I mean, yeah.
No, whatever.
But yes, you know what? I'm gonna double down with the bonus round. I had the IMDb pulled up with all the stupid references.
Okay, I'll see how many I can name without the IMDb.
Okay. But yeah, because there's a bunch of like really random tiny ones.
Right.
Yeah.
So sort of going through characters. Bill Murray, we mentioned because he plays an important role. Sigourney Weaver near the end.
Yeah. There's a Harold Ramis bust in Columbia.
Yes.
Dan Aykroyd shows up in the climax
which is I actually kind of...
That was fun because he actually described the ghosts and everything.
I think that's where people try to pull it together because it's like, why is this random cab driver that looks like Raymond Stantz know about these types of specters? And I think maybe that's where they're trying to link it together. Like,
but I think
he's falling on hard times and he's a cab driver.
But then it doesn't deal with the fact that, you know, Bill Murray has a completely different name and is a debunker of ghosts.
And it doesn't cope with the fact that absolutely everyone has forgotten the events of Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 if those occurred. Yeah. The Statue of Liberty walked around, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Like, that's not something you just forget.
Like, and then it's just, and like, this is a universe where there books of this exist. Like, I'm sure people know the basic fundamentals of like ghosts and shit. And this random cabbie might just be eccentric about ghosts. He might be like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I'm a cabbie, but you don't know what I do in my spare time.
As in addition, also Winston shows up at the very end. Like, he is the last thing you hear before the credits start. And he is Leslie Jones's uncle, who's responsible for getting them the hearse that they turn into the new Ecto-1, or whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm. Really quick aside. One little thing I didn't notice about this, in the original, all like the places they go to, like the firehouse and the Ecto-1 original, they're both like all destroyed and they have to refurbish them. In the new one, whenever they get new stuff, it's all completely clean and they don't have to fix it. I found that weird.
Yeah, they just sort of move in. Well, it's because they're just putting it in different places, I guess.
But like it felt very weird. It's like, oh, they had this whole thing. It's like, oh, we were very cheap. We have to deal with getting a bunch of secondhand crap. Whereas the new one, it's like, oh, it's all incredibly brand new and sparkling. I mean,
well, I guess that's also the case is that it still was like cheap. It's still brand new and sparkling, which is weird for where they are, but it's
the whole
it's
movie
cheap.
had that feeling
It's
of like,
cheap
this
because
is weirdly clean.
It's cheap because it's above the Chinese store, so that's where they get that off. That they couldn't get the Firehouse, though.
Yeah.
The Firehouse didn't look shoveled either. If they had gone there, they wouldn't have had a problem.
Exactly.
But I'll stick up for the Ecto one just in the fact that they fixed up that new car. But this one, they have storyline. It was being used by her uncle, and he shows up like trying to reclaim it at the end of the movie. He's like, I got a bunch of funerals this week. I need it. So it was supposed to be working because it was in use before they had it.
Fair enough. But yeah, that was just a
But
quick
the building thing, yeah, I agree.
Weird, yeah. But yes.
Also, by way of characters, there was one I was forgetting. Annie Potts, who played Janine Milnitz in the first one, she shows up as the clerk at the hotel where Rowan works.
Yes, and then she points him in the direction.
Yeah, she even says, "What do you want?"
Yeah, exactly.
Which is supposed to be the throwback line for people.
Let's see. Here's one. Thanks to IMDb. In some of the posters featuring Holtzman on her proton pack is the number 2206. That is the same number as Dana Barrett's apartment in Ghostbusters, in the original Ghostbusters.
Really?
Yep. That's a random one.
I didn't notice that. Oh, did you catch? Oh, one I forgot. Did you catch when he releases all the ghosts? The Twinkie poster.
Oh yeah.
You caught that?
Yeah, I did catch it.
I didn't notice it the first time I saw it.
When he releases the ghosts and they're fighting them, there's this like ghost advert or something that says it says that's a big, and then there's a picture of a Twinkie. And I think that's a direct line from the original one.
I didn't see it I didn't notice that when I saw the original.
I saw it the first time and I was like, oh, that's
really
fun. Like I think I had to think about it later, but I definitely saw it. Mm-hmm.
Also, a funny thing
at
the beginning, Kristen Wiig's character Erin. She mentions books don't fly and neither do babies.
Yeah, that happened. Both those things happened in the original.
Both those things occurred.
Yep. Let's. A lot of these are kind of depressing because like a lot of it's just trivia. It's like the movie is dedicated to Harold Ramis. It's said in the end. Yeah. And then it's like they give credit to this like big super fan who died a year before the movie came out.
Oh, let's not talk about that.
It's like Jesus Christ, IMDb.
So remember, of course, the Ghostbusters logo, which is...
This isn't even trivia. It says, during the 1990s, Dan Aykroyd's concept for a third Ghostbusters film revolved around the Ghostbusters traveling to an alternate hellish version of New York City. Columbia Pictures balked at the proposed $150 million budget. Ultimately, Ghostbusters 2016 ended up with a $144 million budget, although inflation means it costs less than Aykroyd's proposed sequel. What the fuck kind of trivia is that?
It's amazing trivia. I didn't know about the budget thing, but I did hear about his script idea on like a podcast I listened to a while back.
But it's just so random. It's like, why? Like, okay.
It's hilarious to hear about his shit.
I mean, yeah, he's crazy.
But yeah, while it is a reference, but it's also, they use it as their logo, so it's in the movie, everything with the Ghostbuster symbol, how it comes about, its inception, and how it's used in the end. Mm-hmm. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which we mentioned, who is in the parade of parade floats during the Ghost Invasion. Mm-hmm. He is there. Zool in the end credits.
Yep. The fact that what was it? Like the fact of using Columbia as her setting in the beginning versus the Columbia where they actually filmed in the original.
Not to mention Columbia Pictures, which is responsible for both productions.
Yep. And I'm surprised they didn't have Rick Moranis show up.
It's because he's out of Hollywood.
True, he did
leave. Do it. Yeah,
that is admirable at least.
Yeah. The weird thing is William Atherton is not in it.
Who's that?
He was Walter Peck.
That was it.
That would have been a fine cameo. He's still alive, and I don't think that he would had any qualms about it. I haven't read that he's like new Ghostbusters. Bleh, so
he may not have been approached for it.
But that just seems weird. I would have grabbed him because he was a main player in the movie. He is the catalyst for the whole thing.
He's one of the more iconic characters as well, because it's like he's not a bad guy per se, but he does end up causing so many issues, and his character is so distinct.
He gets top billing over Ernie Hudson in the first one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He gets top billing over one of the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that is some bullshit. Which, although to be fair, he does appear more on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have approached him.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Athy, come on, movie.
Maybe he just didn't. Maybe he was just like, yeah, I'm good.
Maybe he was.
I mean, what else?
That's quite possible.
I can't think of anything else he's been in for a long time.
I mean, I can't either. I can't think of a lot he's been in. Period. I mean,
True.
Howard the Duck, of course.
Well, yes.
Of course. What the fuck?
It's like that's the only thing I can think of.
What's wrong with you?
But yeah, like it is odd that he didn't show up though. Yeah, I will say that.
I think that's all though.
That's
There's
for
not a lot
there's a
of-
bunch of like on IMDb. There's a whole bunch of like other like tiny things like like they mentioned in the movie. Oh, these proton packs are heavier than you think, and it's referencing to the fact that the actors complained how heavy they were during filming the original.
Though Ivan Reitman wouldn't say who complained the most.
Huh.
He said who complained the least was Harold Ramis, but he wouldn't disclose which actor complained the most. I think it was Bill.
Shit, it was gonna be Bill. He probably didn't want to say it on the air because Bill's an asshole,
Right?
Just as a person. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's the extent of the references. It's like the whole point of the movie is that it's meant to be nostalgic as hell, and I'm sure we're missing a couple of small ones. But otherwise, those are the big ones.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Like, and I don't want to bother going through like, oh, they used the number 1984 or something because it was the same year as like. I was just like, shut up.
So, anything you want to go out on?
I guess just final opinions on them.
Final opinions. I think the new one does have its moments, and I adore Melissa McCarthy. I have preached that enough.
Yes.
But the original, it holds up well, and I do think it is a better overall film.
Yeah.
Let alone a better comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree at least with that. I've already very much established. I really, upon rewatching the newest one, I'm just pretty down on it. Not as down as I could have been because there is a lot to love, but the first time I saw it, I didn't have time to look at the flaws. After any subsequent viewing, I'm like, all right, nah, this is just kind of got some issues. The opposite effect with the original one. The first time I saw it, it was like, I don't really see the appeal of this. And as I watch it over and again, I get more, I remember more lines. I remember the little detail work and everything. Just Dan Aykroyd just as a person. It's just, and I just adore it more and more every time. It's like, all right, I get it. I understand why this is such a cult classic. And not even a cult classic, it's just a classic.
Yeah, of course this has draw.
It's exactly. There's a reason for
Why would
this.
it not?
There's a reason, they remade it. So yeah, I
all.
mean the original one's clearly superior in my book, but the newer one does have a couple good moments. Yep. Otherwise,
So that was Ghostbusters. So we're going through 1984 and 2016.
I'm glad to go into something lighter-hearted this time around.
Yeah, a little less heavy.
Yeah, good old Scarface. I mean, God bless Scarface and Blade Runner, but good Lord, they were hard ones to slog through to begin with.
So, of course, we'll be back at the regularly scheduled time.
Yep.
On Wednesday, 3 weeks from now. Next movie not to be disclosed. Though I will give a little hint a few days before on the Twitter. Go follow us on the Twitter.
Hey, Twitter!
At It Remade on Twitter. There is nothing posted as of yet. I am going to probably toy with it a little bit and get it more functioning, but it does exist.
Yep.
And so please go and follow us there. Make sure you subscribe and tell anyone else about this podcast if you think they might enjoy it.
And if there's any particular remakes and everything you thought of that a lot of people might not know as a remake or that you particularly like as a remake, let us know.
Let us know. We'll probably do it. I mean, we're eager to please this early on. We'll do whatever you say.
Please, give us ideas.
We just want here to serve.
We want your love.
I'm staring at this sheet of like 600 remakes that I have listed, and I'm like, I don't know what to do next.
Exactly.
So
it's like, which one of these do people want? Who knows?
Any input would be helpful.
Yeah.
So that's all. Thank you very much for listening.
Have a good day.
Well, let's say this Twinkie represents the normal amount of psychokinetic energy in the New York area. According to this morning's sample, it would be a Twinkie 35 feet long, weighing approximately 600 pounds.
That's a big Twinkie.